What is a good mom? This was the question that I started asking myself the day I found out that I was pregnant. I had just finished an MBA from a top 10 business school that year, got married the month after, and started in a leadership role in Silicon Valley. So getting pregnant was not quite the conventional start to an accelerated career path that I had worked so hard for. But I was that ambitious overachiever. I felt confident about embarking on motherhood. Having been a management consultant, I'm used to juggling multiple things at once and under pressure. I was also mentally preparing myself for the potential pangs that I might encounter in birthing, breastfeeding, right? But I've done the marathons and the Ironmans. I mean, aside from this weird need for self-torture, it also means that I have a really high tolerance for pain. I also felt resourceful. This day and age, we've got tons of baby books on the market, and thank God for the internet, right? I can always look up anything I didn't know. So let me just pause here and cringe for a minute. Now standing in front of you as a mom of 3, the creator of award-winning emotional intelligence games for families, and a Harvard-trained researcher, I cringe because of my naive oversimplification of motherhood. So you know this is not going to turn out as I thought. So I did not realize that the minute you become a parent, as the minute that you get strapped onto this emotional roller coaster that you just can't seem to get off of, my confidence quickly dwindled into doubts and overwhelm. Doubtful if I'll ever be able to push out this 9-pound baby when I'm already on the 40th hour of my labor. After Tyler, our not-so-little bundle of joy, was born, I very quickly learned something that no one has told me about. Babies are like magnifying glasses. And when you introduce a baby into a family, a marriage, you're essentially shining down this big old magnifying glass, amplifying all of the personality differences and flaws between you and your significant other. When Tyler was about a couple of months old, he was embarking in this cooing phase. You know, it's like when babies start to make the vowel sounds, the oohs and the ahs, and I was absolutely mesmerized. I would just stare into his crib and gently coo back and forth at him. And very quickly I realized that my partner over there spoke no coo language. In fact, he did no cooing whatsoever. And so you have to remember, by trade, I'm an executive coach. So I'm like, okay, this is going to take some time for behavioral change, right? So I'm going to drop some hints, sprinkle some hints, ask some rhetorical questions, and do some nice role modeling. A couple of weeks passed by. That cooing milestone never came. And feeling so peeved and frustrated, I finally screamed at him, going, "What's wrong with you? Can't you talk to the baby?" And it was at that moment I had this out-of-body experience where my old self was watching over this new self that was becoming. And I just remember thinking, holy shit, I just screamed at a grown-ass man for not cooing at this baby that doesn't even know how to talk. I mean, like, what is wrong with me? Is this normal? And these 2 questions will become the questions that I will ask myself over and over again, especially during times when I felt so inadequate and lost. And by the way, what do I do when I'm lost? I consult the internet. So I will look up things like, okay, so what does a good mom do? Tell me about it. And out of all the images and articles, even books that I've read, if I could sum it up with one word, what do you think that is? And it is this word, selfless. A good mom is someone who is selfless, who places the needs of her child and her significant other before her own needs. right? And it's no wonder that mother is spelled ma, and what's the other word? Other, right? And you know what else is really interesting? It's not quite explicitly stated, but I certainly got it as a takeaway. A good mom, a selfless mom, is someone who loves her child, who loves being a mom. She is kind, patient, and caring, right? Except my emotions are just a little bit more complicated than that. In fact, I kind of have a confession to make. I sometimes don't really like my children because they kind of make me feel embarrassed, peeved, sad, annoyed, and just downright defeated. I mean, maybe I'm just not a natural mom material. Am I even a good enough mom? And so this will become my source of insecurity, and I will ask that question and am measuring against what is the selfless mom, right? And in striving to be the selfless mom, remember the optimism I had? Quickly faded. My optimism for that work-life arrangement disappeared. And very quickly I transitioned from a working mom to a part-time mom, to a work-from-home mom, and to a stay-at-home mom. And I want to clarify something, having done sort of the tours of all sides of work-life arrangements, right? The grass, my friends, is not greener on the other side. In fact, it's exactly the same shade, and that we're all strapped, again, on this emotional roller coaster that seems to cycle and buzz through the tunnels of guilt, shame, self-blame, and resentment. And when I was a working mom, I constantly battled with the mommy guilt, right? The mommy guilt of, am I putting my career before my child? But yet, I felt this huge sense of obligation that I needed to show the world, right? To pave the way for women that we can rock it at work and we can rock it at home. But the honest reality is that with the work-life arrangement set up it is right now, I see heads shaking, right? I was downright exhausted. And I was constantly battling with this imposter syndrome, wondering, am I doing a good enough job at work? Am I the right person for the work? And am I being a good enough wife, a good enough mom at home? And so then I transitioned to a work-from-home mom. Guess what? The judgment followed. I still remember to this day the look on a relative's face when she had heard that both my partner and I worked from home, but yet our Tyler was in a half-day preschool. Yes, there are laughs. So she was like really baffled. She had this look, she's like, wait, let me get this. You both work, you're at home during middle of the day, but your child is booted out of the house and being outsourced in care, right? So then, of course, I transitioned to a stay-at-home mom. And let me just tell you, this is one of the hardest jobs I've ever had, hands down, right? And yet I felt so ashamed to ask for help because after all, it was my choice and it was a financial luxury. And slowly, instead, I became resentful of the people who are like me, who have marginalized the responsibilities of a stay-at-home mom. And with each of these transitions, I felt like I had lost pieces of myself. Who am I anymore, right? But I told myself to get rid of these unproductive feelings, to suck it up, and to tough it out. And soon, we're pregnant again. And you know how I mentioned that I was an overachiever? I was not lying. Well, this time, my uterus apparently wanted to go above and beyond, and we're pregnant with twins. Thank you. Yes. So it's an amazing blessing, but I had such a difficult twin pregnancy. One of our twin had a defective umbilical cord, and born via emergency C-section at 35 weeks, our twin daughter weighed less than 3 pounds. And our son could not breathe on his own. So you can imagine raising preemies, going through rounds of doctor's appointments, and collectively having 3 under 3, all in diapers, was insane. Yes. But it sort of served as a turning point for me. After yet another bout of feeling so helpless, I realized something. I realized that, you know what? I am not normal. That I just don't fit into this normal selfless mom mode of, say, two kids and a dog, right? And somehow this gave me the permission to let go of myself from my own grip of needing to be that selfless mom. And slowly, I began to learn to put on the oxygen mask first without feeling guilty. And I began to witness how this has benefited not only myself, but also my family. And once the kids are healthy and thriving, I worked up the courage to reinvent my career. And so I decided I'm going to repurpose my expertise in people development in the boardrooms to little people development in the classrooms. So I got a job as a school director at a network of Montessori schools. And that experience in turn inspired me to go back to school myself and learn the science behind child development. So I did my graduate work at Harvard University in developmental cognitive neuroscience and education. And you know what's really funny? So interestingly, my years of working in the schools, doing research and interviewing families, ironically brought me back. It's almost like serendipitously brought me back to my own struggles as a mom. And what I found in my research is that there is this one differentiating factor between the moms who were genuinely happy and fulfilled and the moms who were nervous, stressed, and lost. One differentiating factor. And it is on how moms defined selfish versus selfless. So the moms who are feeling genuinely stressed and nervous define it as a zero-sum game. So what it means is that they believe that a good mom is a selfless mom who needs to uphold the needs of their children and others before their needs, and that anything other than that is considered selfish. And certainly today, we have heard it come up a couple of contexts in a very negative way, right? Selfish equals bad. And in my interviews, I often hear from these moms say something to the effects of, my child is my life. Think about that. My child is my life. And while this is something that we as a society admire, value, and celebrate, what I found is that it quickly becomes a slippery slope when these selfless mama bears begin to increasingly judge their sense of self-worth by the yardsticks of their children's happiness and success. And research in psychological and biological sciences have found that we human beings feel much happier and healthier when we have a strong sense of control over our own lives. So let me ask you, what happens then if day after day these selfless mama bears continue to give away their sense of self-control, their needs, and their purpose, right? So 2 things tend to emerge, 2 themes. The first one I've found is that moms will begin to feel increasingly trapped and helpless by this need to please. Yet they suffer in bitter silence, and you know what the irony is? They feel guilty for feeling this way in the first place. Now the second theme is what we see a lot in today's modern day parenting. Parents, myself included, are at fault at this. We overcompensate by gaining more control over our children's daily activities, their lives. And honestly, it sure beats getting strapped onto that emotional roller coaster, right? So we become the drivers of that helicopter that hovers over our children's daily activities, right? Or the lawnmowers that proactively paves the obstacles, disappointments, failures, and risks that our children might be confronted with. And this is what I call the selfish, selfless syndrome. And to be fair, it's not only moms, it's really mom and dads, parents in general, right? And so in my parent workshops, I often ask parents to think of a simple household task or a schoolwork that you're currently doing for your child. And I ask, who are you doing this for? Are you perhaps folding your son's laundry, tidying up your daughter's room so you can feel better by having a Marie Kondoed house? Or, are you doing that science fair project so that you can look better at school? Or are you doing this so that your child can truly become independent, compassionate, and confident adult one day? Right? Now, on the other hand, the moms in my interviews who appear genuinely happy and fulfilled seem to have found a way to fill up their own cups without pouring out from others. They're not afraid of setting boundaries and expectations for themselves and for others, and they're keenly aware of their strength and weakness. And you know what? Instead of dwelling on what they cannot do and feeling ashamed about it, these moms are not afraid to be seen as the imperfect moms. They're not afraid to ask for help. And something that I've found quite liberating to me is that these moms have learned that just because you can do something for your child, your loved ones, doesn't necessarily mean that you should. Instead, they have learned to back off, step aside, to let go, and to empower and trust others with the responsibilities, even if it's not done perfectly, or the outcome, the pace that is not how they would have liked. These are the moms that have inspired me to rewrite the script to motherhood. Instead of asking, am I a good enough mom? The more important question we should be asking is, what does my child need? And what do I need? And interestingly, in my research, I found that we actually need the same things, which are love, acceptance, and respect for exactly who we are at this moment, right now, today, instead of the people that we need to become. Thank you.